Hey, we're here today to talk about Velgremon Loop. It's been quite a while, so I'm just gonna immediately get into that. First off, where have I been? It's been like 2.5 months, and I'm sorry about the delay for making new videos. I have chronic pain issues. I'm not sure if I've said that before in other videos, but I do, and they flare specifically due to like weather instability as well as some stuff to do with my diabetes. And this winter has been a nightmare for going from freezing temperatures back to spring weather. So I've been in pain on and off for basically 2.5 months straight. Not to mention a handful of things in my personal life came up. So yeah, that's basically where I've been. I've been having like chronic pain issues for the last few months, which have kept me from making content. Uh, and I can't promise that my videos are going to be on a super stable schedule until spring, probably. But I should be making videos more again. I do also stream from time to time, and I'm constantly around on Discord. I do have a Discord server that I made a little bit ago, and I'm going to be putting the link to that in the description here if you want to hang out, post lists, do other things, whatever. I'm around. But that's about it for this. I'm going to get into the actual, content of the deck and talk about that now. Just wanted to give you all an update. So we're just starting with the major takeaways. Also, shout out to my friend Caglio Canis on Twitter for doing the art for this episode. I commissioned it like 2.5 months ago, basically around when I stopped doing videos previous. And it's amazing, and I love it, and I want to show it off all the time, and I haven't been able to for 2.5 months, which is kind of sad. But yeah, Velgremon Loop is one of the two new decks from Special Booster 2.0 that have actually seen widespread competitive results since its release in the last 2 months. It's a deck that focuses primarily on sticking Koichi tamers as well as other utility tamers. I don't know why I put trainers there. Whatever. To continuously loop the Duskmon Velgremon line to get rid of opponents' pieces while chipping into security. There's a handful of varied lists because this is a more value engine package style thing with a win con versus a full deck. The top end or lack thereof is a personal choice of priorities and what you would like to accomplish with the rest of your deck space. We're going to go over a few of those options later in the video, though be aware that this video does not specifically have sample deck lists for things. For this one in particular, you should go to eggmanevents.com and check like people who've placed in recent events, ulti cups and whatever, because they're going to be the people that you want to look at the lists for on this. I've done sample lists in the past, but I feel like this one has so much variance, you should be looking at various lists to get an idea. This is more a toolbox kind of deck with like the things that you can do with it than anything else, so be aware. And I'm just going to start with the Velgremon Loop package. This is an example of the loop package that makes up the deck. We will be going over every one of these pieces in detail, as well as some of the supporting cards you'll see in most every single deck, and then I'll give you a brief overview of the top ends that you can see with the deck, and a few other extra cards to keep in mind. The entire point of this deck is to loop your level 4s over and over again with as much memory as possible, to potentially do it multiple times in the same turn and get rid of as many of your opponent's Digimon as possible. You do that by digivolving on top of the Koichi with your Duskmon, and then you go into Velgremon, and then when Velgremon dies, you bring back a Mat, and then you can grab either a Jack Raid option from your trash or a Duskmon to continue the loop. Depends on what you have in your hand. That's about it. We're going to get into the specifics now, though. So, Koichi. Koichi's the main tamer for this deck, due to him being a tamer that transforms into Duskmon and Velgremon in the show that they're from. Primarily, the deck functions around BT7 Koichi, but the BT18 one is from Special Booster 2, also works with the Gameplan, and is an important name because Koichi's name matters specifically more than what they do in particular. So, BT7 Koichi on play draws 1 and trashes 1, which is important because for your loop to work, you're going to need 1 Velgremon in trash. You can do it from hand, but it is less efficient. And a Duskmon in your hand, so ideally you use this trash effect to put a Velgremon from hand to trash, and on deletion, if he is in sources, he gains you a memory back to go into the next one, which is very good, especially because this is a very memory efficient line. So, also BT18 Koichi on start of main pitches a hybrid to trash to gain a memory, which will also set up your plays because Velgremon is a hybrid. But more importantly, for him in particular, when attacking as an inherit, you can return a Digimon from trash to hand with hybrid trait. So later in your loop, you can recur Duskmon to hand without need for other pieces, but frequently he's the one that you end up running less of because that is more a late game effect than the Koichi one, and the Koichi one, because he gives you one memory back of the two that you need to continue the loop, is generally a bit better. But we're going to get into the pieces now. With Duskmon. Duskmon's a level 4 hybrid Digimon that can Digivolve for 3 on a level 3 purple or a purple Tamer, or Digivolve for 2 specifically on Koichi Kimura. He can Digivolve for 1 on Velgremon, but you're not going to want to Digivolve on top of Velgremon. Velgremon Digivolves on top of Duskmon, not the other way around. On play or when Digivolving, you get to change the original color of one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers to one non-white color until the end of their turn. It is important for rules to say that when you do this, the opponent's Digimon or Tamer that you choose loses all other colors. So if it's a dual color Digimon, it becomes one color. If it's a dual color Tamer, it becomes one color. Same if it's 3, so on. It loses everything else. So it can hamper your mill effects on Velgremon if used multiple times. You're going to end up needing to use it multiple times, but sometimes you just want to target the same thing over and over to change it so that you don't have to worry about that. But it can also fully stop your opponent from Digivolving the next turn or using colors for option sources if you choose correctly. Some decks don't have the black text Digivolution costs if they're not, for lines that feel like they need that. So if you change the color, they cannot Digivolve on top of things properly, or the Tamer may not be a color source that they need for an option, so on and so forth. It is really good for stumping people on that. Specifically, the black text box are a lot more common now, so that's less of a thing, but you can change color sources. Be sure that you're not giving them a source that is useful to them that does mess you up sometimes. If you're going against a red-black deck, don't just make something red or black, or if they have a blue option available to them in that deck, don't give them blue. Change them to a color that is not useful for them at all. Some opponent deck knowledge is helpful in making this deck work. But when attacking, one of your Digimon or Tamers may Digivolve into a level 4 hybrid from trash for a reduction of 1, which will lead you into the Velgremon. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But also, his inherited effect is on deletion, you may play one Tamer with a cost of 4 or less from trash without paying the cost, which keeps the loop going. It does not specifically state a color, because you run Louis in the stack frequently. You can play Louis out off of it as well if you just need that one extra move, or if you just need the memory that Louis gets from pushing something out. That is an option to you. Be aware. Velgremon. So Velgremon is the piece for which the deck is named, and that is for a reason. He is the reason the deck functions and is competitive. Mostly you're going to be Digivolving into Velgremon for a cost of 0 from Duskmon attacking, but if you were to straight Digi into him, and sometimes you do need to do that, it's 4 from a level 3 Digimon or a purple Tamer, or 3 on Koichi or 1 on top of Duskmon if you don't have one in trash and you need to just force the line. On play or when Digivolving, for each color your opponent's Digimon and Tamers have, you each mill a card. So if they have 3 colors, you each mill 3. And then, for each card milled, Velgremon gets plus 1000 DP. So in this case, if you're both milling 3 and you have 3 to mill, he gets plus 6, so frequently he ends up getting to be 13k when you're swinging, which is more than enough to get over a lot of things. Then, if he survives the attack, and he frequently will if they're on 3 colors, end of attack by deleting 1 level 4 or lower purple Digimon, delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest level. It does not need to be himself, but you will want to have him kill himself most of the time. It's just better for the loop, but if you have like a Psychomon on board or something, you can also pop that if you want to keep the Velgremon around. But when he pops himself, or something else, you will delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest level. And then, because of the inherit on the Duskmon, you play out a Tamer from trash and potentially gain a memory off of the Koichi as well. So, it goes pretty well. You get to wipe all of their level 3s, or if they don't have level 3s, level 4s, and so on. It can get pretty ridiculous, especially if you do it multiple times in a row. And you will frequently be doing it 2 or 3 times in a turn once you're in the end stages of the game. Now, the last piece of the combo, at least the key piece of the combo, is Matt Ishida, specifically BT2 Matt Ishida. He is the end piece from one string of the combo. He enables you to do the loop again without needing Koichi from BT18's when attacking effect. So, he plays an important role as a memory setter, which is great, but the primary thing that he does is he recurs pieces. So on play, you return one purple Digimon card or purple option from trash to your hand. When you finish a string and Velgremon deletes itself, or something else, though usually he wouldn't be playing off of something else. So if Velgremon deletes himself, you use the Duskmon inherit to play Matt from trash, which will then return the Duskmon back to your hand because Velgremon wants to be in the trash. Or, if you already have another Duskmon in hand, you can grab a Jack Raid, which I'm going to talk about in a second, which will just gain you memory to do another loop anyway. From there, you can do the loop again, and in a pinch, Matt can be used as a piece to Digivolve on top of with Dusk. He sets you to 3, so if you already have one on the board, you start at 3, Dusk will Digivolve for 3, and then Digivolve into Velger from your trash for free when attacking. And then when the stack dies, you can play Matt back out again to get the Duskmon back to hand. It goes very well. You just can only loop once if that's the line that you're going on, basically. So, Jack Raid. The other thing that makes this deck really powerful. Jack Raid is an all-star in any purple deck that gets a good amount of cards in the trash. And because this is a self-mill deck, it is an all-star. So the reason why this is fair and Hammer Spark is not is because you have to do a lot of setup for Jack Raid versus Hammer Spark. But Jack Raid is a 0 cost that you gain a memory for each 10 cards in your trash. Frequently with this deck, you'll be at 10, 20, 30 cards in your trash, most of the time 20, so you'll gain back 2 memory. Matt, because you can recur a purple option, can recur it to your hand if you already have all the pieces you need, and just need more memory to extend as well. So frequently, this will get you 2 memory back for free, which is enough to start a loop again if you have Koichi on the board, and frequently it can get you more memory to have one big game-ending turn, which is a thing that you want to do with this deck fairly frequently, is to just loop over and over and over until the game is done, and Jack Raid enables you to do that more often than not. So, we're going to talk about the support cards now, specifically the eggs. There are 2 eggs that are most frequently used in the deck. You can use either of them at whatever number. Most people use 4 Demimera and 1 Cupimon, though you can switch that around, or you can only run 4 if you want. Depends on your preferences. But basically, feel free to use anything that's a purple egg that can give you memory back or cycle cards. And you're generally going to want 5 eggs specifically because this runs the Ukkomon package. Mervamon is a classic on deletion, draw 1 and then trash 1, and it helps cycle your hand and put things in the trash that need to be there because you need the Velgremon in trash, and probably a Matt to keep going. And then Cupimon, BT16, on deletion, you trash 1 card in your hand and you gain 1 memory. Primarily, it's used for extension during your turns because most of your rookies are going to be slamming into security, which is the thing to mention. This is also kind of a rookie rush deck, specifically with Ukkomon, but also with all the other rookies that you end up running. You are going to be slamming those things in security to chip enough that you can have one big game-ending turn. So these have nice on-deletion effects, and you're going to be using them a lot. So, your search engine is the Ukkomon package. You do need all of the cards in your hand to make this work. So the Ukkomon package goes in every version of the deck without a need for traditional... it goes in every deck that doesn't need traditional level 3s and has a need for a lot of specific pieces. So this is more or less a must-have because this fits that criteria. Specifically, do not need to run the one-ofs, but I would recommend it. they are very good. They're one of us for a reason. Ukkomon BT16 is your primary one, though. You run 4 in every single version of this deck. When pushing out, or when any other level 3 or any other thing pushes out of your breeding area, you search the top 3 cards of your deck, and you can add a Digimon or a Tamer to your hand, then hatch to go again in your back. It smooths out the early stages when you're playing for setup turns, and also enables some Rookie Rush. You do not necessarily need to slam in with the Ukkomon immediately if you need to get the searches more, but it definitely helps to be able to get your on deletion effects. Knowing when you're doing things is part of the reason, like, certain people are very good at this deck and certain people are less good at this deck. It's a thing where, with more practice, you'll be able to understand when to take certain actions. And then the other 2 cards are the limited ones, but should be played. Promo Ukkomon gains a memory when it or another Digimon pushes out of the breeding area once per turn, and Louis suspends to do the same. But on play, Louis will immediately push something out, leading to a hybrid for game style play. That's one of the reasons why you play it off of the Duskmon inherit frequently, is you just need one last hit, and pushing out a level 3 will do it. But also, it gives you even more memory to start off your loop turns if you already have it on the board, which is nice, and, helps with your game plan. We're going to go into the options you're going to want to consider for this deck as well. Mill-centric options, specifically. So there are 3 mill-centered options that you should consider for your deck. One is more important than the others, but you should consider all 3. Rivals Barrage is more or less necessary for the deck late game. It is a 7-cost option. If you don't have a piece that you need, it is very good. If it's milled from the top of your deck, you can use it on a later turn with delay to return a Digimon or Tamer to your hand, so you can get a Koichi or a Duskmon to do your combo with. It's also a 7-cost removal option for decks like Lucemon or Mirage or anything else that give you problems. So keep it in mind. Sometimes slamming a 7-cost removal is better than wasting multiple turns trying to deal with something. Missed Memory Boost is a memory boost option that mills 2 cards from the top of your deck and then draws 1. It's good for setting up a Velgremon in trash, and also getting memory for later loop turns. The memory is very good. Deathslinger is used less in lists that are placed highly, though it is in a lot of these decks, and I personally use it. But if it's milled from your deck, you gain a memory, and you're going to be milling a lot with this deck. So you can continue your turn. It's primarily for extension, but also is a good removal option for 4-cost late game for any annoying cards. So keep it in mind as well. They all just work really well in self-mill and mutual mill decks. So, put them in. They're very good. Now, your rookies. These are things that are not specific to top-end archetypes. These are just generic ones for purple. Because you're running the Ukkomon engine and your top end is mostly fuel for extra win cons or rush down, you do need a fair bit of rookies. Starter deck 16 Gabumon gains you memory at the start of your main phase if your opponent has a Digimon, which is a very good effect just in general. And in case you need to Digivolve on top of it, it also has an effect that works very well with this deck, because it has when attacking once per turn, you draw 1, then trash 1, which fits your game plan, will get the pieces where it needs to be specifically for your stuff. You can trigger the draw 1, trash 1 before triggering Duskmon, because you get to stack your when attacking triggers however you like. So if you draw the Duskmon, or not the Duskmon, the Velgremon, you can throw it in the trash so that you have a target. It's very nice. Gazimon is the secondary of choice. It's a memory floodgate, which shuts off Mirage and other annoying things in the meta for this deck in particular. But Psychmon is also an option because there isn't a lot of memory. But because there isn't a lot of memory reduction currently, it's less important than it used to be. It's mostly okay against this deck, but Psychmon is a better floodgate for this deck, even in the mirror. So keep it in mind, maybe a one of, but it's, just an option so that you have spice picks to choose if you like. But yeah. Now we're going to go into the top ends. The primary top end that people play with specifically is Mervamon. Mervamon can Digicross with its rookie Ignitemon in trash, and on play from that, can play 2 Digimon level 4 or lower that are purple or have Crossheart if you do the Digicross with an Ignitemon or with a Mervamon under it, and gives all Digimon played, well, all Digimon that have Cross Heart or Retaliation, Rush, and Blocker. You can also play Ginkaku Promote, which is one of the things that is on the list over here, which just has Rush and is a level 4. It does not need Retal. Kaiser Leomon, specifically from BT18, does though, so if you don't have Ginkaku Promote, 2 Kaiser Leomon is also a good option. Mervamon can also cross with itself because it has Cross Heart as well, and that's its only requirement, so you won't get the memory back that you would off of Ignitemon playing stuff out, but it is an option for you if you just want to throw Ignitemon on the board. With enough memory from Jackraid, you can push 3 attacks in 1 turn to close a game out. It costs 8 to Digicross into her, 7 if you have an Ignitemon under and throw things out. So you can get that much memory off of Jackraid, not always, but it is a way to close out boards if you do have that as an option. Most decks with this either run a level 5 Argamon to stop opponent from unsuspending their their Tamers, or a Rihimon to play Tamers out, and you use Ginkaku Promote or Kaiser Leomon to attack immediately. It is another thing that I should say that it sets up a semi-defensive board state as well if you just play Mervamon out, because it does give Crossheart and Retaliation things Rush and Blocker, which is why Kaiser Leomon, I think, is a little bit better, because it will have Retal Blocker on your opponent's turns, so they can't just swing in willy-nilly, but, that's up to you. Then, the other top end is Dark Masters. I only saw this recently. This is a thing that I saw from DigiGuard United on YouTube. He recently got top 5, I think, the Ulti Cup that happened recently. So, this is from him. Go watch his YouTube video. He has a video on this deck in particular. Watch it. Support other people in the Digimon YouTube space. There's not a ton of us. But Dark Masters in this deck is primarily a payoff to your self-mill from your loops to add a secondary win con to mill your opponents out with Apocalypse, because you will mill your opponents a lot. The goal is to get your Dark Masters in the trash so you can slot them under Apocalypse. Apocalypse can play for a reduced cost by slotting Dark Masters under it. I believe it reduces down to 3 if you slot 3 under, and then end of your turn you can slot a level 6 under, activate its on-play effect, if it has one, and then mill your opponent 2 for each source under the Apocalypse. This stacks quickly. There is a reason that Apocalypse is limited. It was a tier 0 deck for ages in Japan, and then for the 2 or 3 weeks it existed in the US. Lament of Friendship is also an option that returns a Digimon back to your hand, not color gated. So you can, for 3, pull back Apocalypse from your trash to make plays, which is primarily the way that you're going to get it, because Rivals Barrage only pulls back purple stuff. So if you're running the Dark Master stuff, you do need at least 1 Lament of Friendship to recur your pieces that you need. Okay, we're going to go into cards you should consider. Death Exmon. Now a significantly cheaper staple. Death X has always been a staple of various parts of the meta, and he serves a pretty decent function in this deck. The play cost is 20, but it reduces by 3 for each Digimon and Tamer on your opponent's side of the board. On play, because you will never be Digivolving it in this deck, de-Digivolve 1 all of your opponent's Digimon, then delete all of your opponent's level 4 or lower. End of your opponent's turn, you delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost. In this deck, it clears the way for a Velgremon combo, because it makes it awkward for them to ace if you de-Digivolve them a level, especially if they don't have a ace in their deck that works at a level that it moves things down from. And it makes it so that when Velger self-destructs, it will kill all level 5s or level 6s on board, instead of level 3s, level 4s, so on. Because anything that is level 4 or lower has been wiped by Death Exmon, and Death Exmon frequently comes out for free or 2 or 3. So, Death Exmon is great. I would run it at 1 or 2, depending on your deck list. But it is very good in this, and it does clear the way for you to be able to do your combo properly. You should also consider AG. I did not bring them up with the Tamers earlier, but AG is specifically this one, is one that you should consider specifically to round out Tamers that can be used for hybrid fodder. He has a very useful start of main effect to gain 1 memory, and having more memory to start your loop turns is always beneficial. But he has a nice side effect of being able to slot out of your hybrid stack at the end of the turn if it survives. So you can use the Velgremon effect to blow up a level 3 and keep the stack on board if you don't need the pieces, or if you don't have pieces you need to recur immediately. The effect is a bit more niche because you frequently do want to be blowing up Velgremon, but it does come up and you should keep it in mind. Unfortunately, the Dark Animal SOC all turns gains alliance and blocker thing does not happen with this, but you should keep in mind that that is an inheritable trait. So if you have things that specifically get tamers with inheritables out, that works. It really works for that stuff. So keep this in mind. AG is good. He was less good in like the yellow hybrid stuff. Not AG, sorry. I mean Hacker Judge was less good in like the yellow hybrid stuff, but AG is actually beneficial for this deck in a way that Hacker Judge was not for yellow stuff. So do not get it twisted. AG is really good for this, and being a play cost 3, he is pretty easy to play out early turns if you don't have other plays. Another card you should consider, Ancient Guardian Deity. It looks weird because it's red-blue, but if you have a tamer, you can ignore its cost for color. For 2, you can return a Digimon card with hybrid trait from trash to hand, and then you may play 1 tamer card with inherited effects from your hand with the play cost reduced by 4. So that includes your AG if you don't have anything else in your hand. But it will recur for 2, a Duskmon to your hand, and then play a tamer. So you can get a Duskmon and a Koichi out, or an AG, and you'll be able to, get moving with your next turn. If you don't really play any 10 warrior stuff, the purple level 6 isn't worth playing, but it does recur the Duskmon and then plays a Koichi for 2, so, it's nice. It's really nice. It just requires you to have a tamer on the board already, so it's not a first turn card. It's probably not even a second turn card. It's a thing to help you like round out the very end of your game if you have excess memory. Also a card you should consider, Lament of Friendship. I brought it up specifically with the Apocalypse version, but it should be brought up separately because you should be thinking about this for the regular version of your deck anyway. For 3, return 1 Digimon card from trash to hand. The other effects don't really do anything with this one, because you don't have a reason to play any card with Garurumon in name, but the whole engine of the deck requires Duskmon to be in hand, and this is a backup card to get there. Sometimes having redundant effects is just beneficial to you in the long run, and this is a redundant effect to do the thing that you want. So, here's a spice pick for you. Gallantmon, specifically BT13 Royal Knights Gallantmon. I saw this one in Momin's 12th place Ultimate Cup list recently, and I figured I should throw it in because it's not a bad pick for the deck at all. It's one of my favorite cards in Millith, too, so it makes sense to me for it to be here, but I didn't think about it myself until I saw the pick, and now I think I'm going to throw it in my version of it. So, Gallantmon BT13 is a 13 play cost red level 6 that reduces its play cost by 2 for every 5 cards in both players' trashes if you have no Digimon on the field. Now, it sounds weird that it's a red card that's in a purple deck. You are never going to be Digivolving for 5 with this. Do not worry about that. What happens is that if you have no Digimon on field, and you frequently don't with this deck because you're chipping your rookies into security every single turn, or at the start of your turn, if you still have rookies from the last turn, you're going to be chipping them in now. So if you have no Digimon on the board, you get to play it for 1 if you're between you and your opponent, you have 30 cards in trash, which is really easy to achieve with this deck. 15 in your trash and 15 in your opponent's. If you have 35 or more between you and your opponent, it is free. So frequently you will be playing this for 1 or 0. It has Rush and on play when attacking, not once per turn. You can delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 6,000 DP or less, and then if it didn't delete from that effect, you delete one opponent's Digimon with 13,000 or more. So you'll be able to get rid of small guys that get in the way, or you can get rid of aces that will, get you a ton of memory back and keep your turn going, or their boss monster that's really annoying. Either way, this is a very good card. It is kind of expensive, so if you don't want to throw it in, it's not necessary. It's just kind of a fun spice pick if you want to, think about something extra that you can do to get rid of annoying aces in a deck that doesn't really start deleting level 6s until, your third loop, mostly. So yeah, keep it in mind. Alright, I'm going to explain the loop cycle so that you know exactly how the turn works. So the general combo is to have 2 Koichis on board and maybe a mat to set for you. We're going to assume that there's either a mat on board or you just are starting your turn at 3. So you start your turn at 3 memory. You digivolve a Koichi into a Duskmon for 2, and you go to 1 memory. You choose an opponent's Digimon or Tamer, whichever is more advantageous for you at the moment, and you make it a color not relevant to their deck. Let's say they're playing a red and black, Wargreymon deck, you're going to turn something purple. Nothing in their deck really interacts with purple unless they have Skullgreymon, and Skullgreymon is not necessary for anything in their deck. So, choose something like purple, or green, or something that you know is not relevant, right? And then you attack with Duskmon. When attacking, if BT 18 Koichi is in sources, you return a Duskmon from your trash to your hand. Then, after that, you digivolve into a Velgremon in trash for free. Velgremon, when digivolving effect activates. You and your opponent mill a card for each color among sources on their board. Resolve any milled option effects, and then Velgr gains DP for each card milled. Frequently, you're going to be milling 2 or 3 from your opponent's board, from your opponent's deck and your deck. So you will be getting a +4 or +6 most of the time. If the attack goes through and it survives, you'll do the next step. If not, you immediately jump to the on-deletion effect. So, if it survives, Velgremon will kill itself and wipe all of the lowest level opponent Digimon. So if they have a level 3, that'll be all level 3s. If they don't have a level 3, it will be all level 4s, and so on, right? Then on deletion, if BT7 Koichi is in sources, you gain a memory. Then Duskmon Inherit activates. Play a mat from your trash, or Koichi, or whatever, depending on the board state of the game. But if you play a mat, you recur a Duskmon or a Jack Raid as needed, depending on the cards in your hand. And then, if you were at 2 memory from Koichi, you immediately go again. If not, you use the Jack Raid that you got from the mat, like if you used the BT18 Koichi to get the Duskmon back to the hand, to then gain memory and go again. And then you cycle through it again as many times as you can until you either run out of the ability to get Duskmon back, or until you win the game, or until you have no memory. Either way, this will work over and over and over again, deleting higher and higher levels until you are done. Then you make whatever play that you need to end the turn, or you've already won the game. So either way, you're fine. So, the game plan with the deck. The real bar to entry for winning with this deck is setting up your hand with the cards you need for the loop, and setting up your trash with Velgremon and likely at least 1 mat to serve as recursion. The early game plan is to use the Searcher Ukko to find necessary pieces and then chip into security 2 or 3 times with your Rookie Rush guys to trigger the Demi-Merit Egg for more draw trash shenanigans. You play your Koichi Tamers out early so that you can draw trash, or have the setter Koichi so that, not the setter, he doesn't set, the Koichi that pitches something to gain you a memory, as well as have Tamers available to be used for hybrid attacks. If you play AGs, have those on deck, on your board, so you can gain memory at the start of your turn to do more things on your search turns. Once you have the pieces in hand, you can start the loop I explained on the previous page. If you need to have that explained to you again, just go back. That explanation serves basically every single time. Usually you'll get 2 combos before you run out of memory or tamers that you can attack with. But if you have Jack Raid, you can go even further and potentially end the game right then. 3 loops after doing some rookie chip usually will either win you the game or put your opponent on 0 security, which is very easy for you to come back with the next turn. Your goal should be always to have a Duskmon in hand to keep it going. If you play the Mervamon version, you can also use Jack Raid after a loop or 2 to put Ignite Mon or Retaliation Digimon or Genkaku Promote on the board to close out that way after a loop or 2 if you have enough memory with Jack Raid to go to like 7, right? So that is the game plan with this deck. If you're running the Apocalypse version, you're going to want to do mostly the same thing, but if your opponent is low, then you're going to want to slot things under Apocalypse to mill them out so that on their turn, when they draw, there's no cards left in their deck, and then they're done. That's about it. So, we're going to go into weaknesses of the deck. This deck has 2 primary weaknesses: opponent interference from blue decks and not seeing your pieces. We're going to go over not seeing your pieces first because it's very common. Not seeing your pieces during your setup turns can lose you the game right out the gate, which can be frustrating, but the longer you play with the deck, the more you'll understand what sort of moves need to be taken during these stages. Some of this is practice and some of this is luck. Sometimes prioritizing keeping Search Ukkomon alive on the board without chipping in is more important than chip if you're bricked. A good starting hand has 1 Tamer, Duskmon, and an Ukkomon to start the Rookie Rush, but if you can get those plus a Velgremon, then you're basically perfect. If you mulligan and you only have a Rookie, then you're doing not horribly, but you kind of want like 2 of the pieces at least to start doing the thing. Blue decks in the form of Mirage and Imperial are the hardest for you specifically, which is frustrating because they're both powerful right now. This deck has a lot of representation in the meta, but Mirage and Imperial are not outright counters, but are problems for you, so be aware. Mirage is the one that counters you more. So Mirage gets in the way of you searching for pieces with Ukkomon because it's an effect that adds a card to hand, as well as Koichi for draw discard, and any other type of draw effects that you have going on in the deck, because anytime you draw a card, they gain a memory for every 4 cards you have in your hand. At least once per turn, but that can just end your turn. So Gazimon is the best way to kneecap them, because Gazimon makes it so your opponent can't gain memory due to Digimon effects. So they won't gain memory back, right? But unfortunately, because he's level 3, he is very easily outed as a bounce target for them, and they will do that as soon as they are able. You just need to keep slapping that guy down. It's really just kind of the way to deal with it. Imperial itself's main cards aren't the worst for you because you don't stick Digimon on the board frequently for more than a turn. But Paladin Mode Ace will lose you the game if you swing into it, so you need to be cautious if they have a level 6 on board. Paladin Mode Ace can either return all of your opponent's trash to the bottom of their deck, or all of your trash to the bottom of your deck, and you need your trash to do anything in this deck. So if they return everything back, you're not going to be able to do anything. Be aware, though, that the Ace window happens after you resolve all of your when attacking effects. So you do get to grab the Velgremon and everything first, and if it is the only thing that is on the board, you can do quite a bit to them. You'll gain a lot of memory back, but yeah, just be aware. And if they have the option on board that like just digivolves into the next highest level up as a protection, you're going to have a bad time. Less represented competitively, but still annoying for you, and I brought it up earlier with the options, is Loosemon. Loosemon, as a deck, tears apart Tamer boards, so you're going to need to be cautious into them, and you're going to need to play your removal pretty quickly. Same with Mirage and Imperial, but yeah, it is a thing to be aware of. These are the overall weaknesses for the deck. Just keep them in mind, and try testing against these if this is a thing that you want to play competitively before you do. I know for people who play competitively already, this video is coming out late, but for people who are trying to get into more competitive gameplay, keep these things in mind. In conclusion, Loop away. This is probably the most meta-relevant new deck, and will probably always be pretty okay because it is quick, unlike Millith. And when you have your pieces, has some really miserable effects to play against. If you like mill, this is the deck for you. It's a more competitive version of like Millith, though you won't be milling anyone for game almost ever outside of the Apocalypse version. You try to be quick on the ground with your setup turns and get the loop going as quickly as possible, and you'll end up doing pretty well. So, just a thing to keep in mind. But that's about it for me today. Please like and subscribe and share this with your community, your friends who are getting into the competitive scene or would like to learn this deck. My Twitter and Twitch is LainTCG. Art for this episode is by Caglio Canis on Twitter, one of my friends. My model is by Be a Big Shot or at Arabiataho on Twitter. The cursor model is by VeniVidiVT or VeniVidi_VT on Twitter and VGen. My banner is by Yoyoms on Twitter, and my logo is by Pinkybird on Twitter and VGen. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a nice day, and good luck at your locals. See you next time.